Ladies and gentlemen, gather around because today we're talking about one of the greatest forms of entertainment ever invented by mankind. Government promises. Yeah, that's right. Forget Netflix, forget comedy specials, forget late-night TV. If you really want to laugh, just turn on a press conference. That's where the real comedians live. The only difference is comedians admit they're lying for entertainment. The government, they lie and call it a policy. Every election season, they stand up there with the same big, shiny grin, telling you the same recycled lines. We're going to fix everything. This time it'll be different, and people clap like trained seals, hoping a fish will fall out of the sky. You'd think after 100 years of watching politicians blow smoke, people would have learned to stop inhaling. But no, they still breathe it in like oxygen. Government promises come in one flavor. Too good to be true. We're going to improve education. We'll fix the economy. We're going to clean up corruption. And the best one, we're working for you. Yeah, sure you are. And I'm the Easter Bunny doing overtime on Christmas. The funniest part is that these promises always arrive right before elections, like magic. Suddenly every road is being repaired, every minister is making speeches, and every politician is shaking hands like they're being paid per handshake. After the election, boom, the magic disappears. Roads break again, ministers vanish, and the promises go back into storage until the next election cycle, where they'll be recycled like cheap plastic. And people keep falling for it because humans love hope. Hope is free and governments hand it out like candy. Real solutions, though. Those cost money. And guess whose money that is? That's right, yours. And the government is very careful about how it spends your money. Badly, wastefully, and never on you. Government promises are the longest-running joke in human history, and the punchline is always the same. We're still working on it. They never finish anything, but they're always working. Imagine if you told your boss that every week. Sir, I'm working on it. You'd be fired so fast your chair wouldn't cool down. But when politicians do it, they get reelected. That's why government promises are comedy gold. They're hilarious, predictable, and they keep coming back every few years like a sitcom nobody asked for but keeps getting renewed. Because the audience never changes the channel. They just sit there waiting for the happy ending that never arrives. In the end, government promises are like weather forecasts from a magician. Lots of hand-waving, no accuracy. But hey, at least we get a good laugh. Government promises are designed to sound good, not to be fulfilled. And that's the real secret nobody in power ever admits out loud. The entire political industry runs on speeches, slogans, and sweet little fantasies carefully shaped to make the public feel like something meaningful is about to happen. They don't craft these promises for results. They craft them for applause, votes, and the illusion of competence. Every time a government mouthpiece stands in front of a microphone, they're not giving you a roadmap to progress. They're performing. They're engaging in a carefully rehearsed act designed to keep people calm and hopeful enough not to question what's actually going on behind the curtain. And people love it too. Humans love anything that sounds like improvement, especially when that improvement doesn't require them to do anything except nod and believe. A politician's promise isn't built for action. It's built for emotional reaction. They say what sounds right, what feels comforting, what hits the nerves of fear, pride, or desperation just enough to make people think, well, maybe this time things will be different. But history has shown over and over again that promises are basically currency for politicians, and the public keeps accepting them like they're worth something. The government has become an expert in manufacturing dreams without ever worrying about producing results. They're like a company that hands out beautiful brochures with pictures of paradise, even though the actual product hasn't been built, won't be built, and was never intended to be built in the first place. These promises are scripted by teams of professional speechwriters who understand psychology better than most therapists. They know that if they speak with enough confidence, enough urgency, and enough fake sincerity, people will buy into it. They know that the average citizen is exhausted, overwhelmed, and desperate for relief. So they give them the verbal equivalent of fast food. Cheap, easy, comforting, and completely lacking in real nutritional value. People don't bother to check the ingredients because the packaging looks so good. And politicians count on that. They rely on the fact that voters remember how a promise made them feel but never track whether it was kept. The funniest part is that the promises repeat in cycles. You can take a political speech from 50 years ago, change a few names, update the technology references, and it fits perfectly into today's world. That's because the same problems never get fixed, and the same promises are recycled like old scripts. Every generation thinks their politicians are finally going to do something, even though the last 10 generations believe the exact same thing. The government uses promises like a magician uses distraction. They keep your eyes on the illusion so you never notice the trick. And let's be honest, if they actually solved problems, they couldn't use them to campaign anymore. Why fix education when you can promise to fix it every 4 years? Why solve poverty when you can talk about solving it for decades? A solved problem is a lost talking point. Promises aren't solution. They're political investments. They're tools used to maintain loyal supporters without giving them anything real. It's like giving a starving person a menu instead of a meal. Sure, they can read it, imagine the food, talk about how good it looks. But in the end, they're still hungry. Government promises are crafted to be just believable enough that people won't revolt, but vague enough that the government can always say, "We're working on it." They tell you everything you want to hear and deliver nothing they don't absolutely have to. Because the goal is in progress. The goal is compliance, patience, and the endless belief that change is just around the corner. And as long as people keep believing it, the government never has to actually deliver anything except more promises. People keep believing government promises because hope is cheaper than solutions, and for most people, hope is the only thing they can afford. The government understands this perfectly. They know that people will cling to optimism even when the evidence is stacked against them. It's human nature. When life gets difficult, people don't want complicated explanations or harsh truths. They want something simple, comforting, and easy to believe. Politicians offer that in the form of promises that sparkle just enough to distract from the reality that nothing is actually changing. Hope becomes a product, and the public becomes the consumer. The funny part is that this hope doesn't even need to be realistic. It just needs to sound nice. People want to believe that the next election will bring better jobs, better roads, cheaper living, safer streets, honest leadership. They want to believe that someone out there is fighting for them, speaking for them, thinking about their well-being. And when a politician says the magic words, "We hear you, we're working for you, we will make your life better," people fall in love with the idea. It's not the politician they trust, it's the hope attached to the words. The cycle continues because hope requires no work from the public. Believing a promise is easy, demanding results is hard. Tracking government performance takes time. Understanding budgets, policies, and laws takes effort. But believing in a promise only takes a few seconds and a little emotional vulnerability. So people take the easy route. They trust the voice on the screen, the speech on the podium, the slogan on the banner. They don't question why the same problems show up again and again. They don't ask why every generation inherits the same frustrations. It's easier to believe that this time things will change. Politicians also exploit desperation. When people struggle financially, socially, emotionally, they're more likely to believe anything that offers relief. A person drowning doesn't question the integrity of the rope thrown to them, they grab it. Governments take advantage of that psychological emergency. They step forward during crises with dramatic promises, and the public, exhausted and scared, accepts them without hesitation. Even when past promises were broken, people give them another chance because the alternative is admitting the system is failing. And that realization is far more terrifying than a comforting lie. Hope is cheap, but it's powerful. It keeps people voting, waiting, and tolerating. It keeps them manageable. If people stopped believing in government promises, the entire political structure would collapse overnight. No politician could survive without the public's willingness to be hopeful. So the system continues feeding hope like candy, sweet, addictive, and ultimately empty. People don't cling to promises because they trust politicians. They cling because they want to trust something. They want to believe their struggles matter to someone in power. They want to believe there's a plan, a direction, a better tomorrow waiting just out of reach but still possible. Governments know this weakness and they use it masterfully. They sell hope in fancy packaging and the public buys it every time because the alternative is facing a truth too heavy to carry. That real change requires more than promises and more than hope. The system relies on repeating the same lies to a new generation of voters every few years because repetition is the most powerful tool in the political playbook. Politicians know that memories fade, frustrations soften, and people eventually forget the specifics of the last disappointment. All they have to do is wait long enough for the next group of hopeful voters to come along, fresh, inexperienced, and ready to believe that maybe this time things will go differently. It's like a bad movie franchise that keeps producing sequels nobody asked for. But somehow each generation thinks theirs will be the one that finally gets it right. Every election season, the same promises get dusted off like old furniture stored in a basement. They polish them, change a few words, slap on a new slogan, and present them as brand new ideas. We'll fix healthcare. We'll strengthen the economy. We will reduce corruption. It's the same script just delivered by a different actor. And because each generation grows up dealing with its own unique set of pains and pressures, the recycled promises feel relevant again. Young voters hear them for the first time and think, this makes sense. Why hasn't anyone done this before? Meanwhile, older voters shake their heads, remembering the last time they heard the same line delivered by a different smiling face. Governments count on the natural human desire to believe in progress. No one wants to accept the possibility that their leaders are intentionally ineffective or dishonest, so people reset their expectations every few years. They convince themselves that the previous politicians failed because they were the wrong ones. But the next batch might finally be competent. It creates a cycle that refreshes itself without any real improvement happening in between. Politicians don't even need to be creative. They just wait, repeat, and rely on time to erase public frustration. The system is built around this cycle. Governments never fully solve problems because doing so would eliminate the need for future promises. If they fix healthcare, they can't promise to fix healthcare again. If they reduce corruption, they lose a major talking point. Problems become political assets, not obstacles. As long as issues remain partially unresolved, leaders can repackage them into new campaigns, new speeches, and new narratives for the next generation of voters. It's a strategy of controlled failure. Fail just enough to keep people desperate, but not enough to make them revolt. The younger generation, being less cynical and more eager for change, becomes the perfect audience for these recycled promises. They haven't lived through enough political cycles to see the pattern clearly. Their idealism becomes fuel for the system. They volunteer, they vote, they cheer, and they repeat the same lines older generations once believed. By the time they realize the truth, another younger group rises behind them, ready to be convinced all over again. The system survives not because it evolves, but because people keep aging into it. The lies don't need to change as long as the listeners do. Politicians don't need new material. They just need new believers. And every few years, a fresh wave arrives, hopeful and unscarred, ready to hear the same promises as if they were being spoken for the first time. In the end, government promises are nothing more than a well-rehearsed performance, a show that keeps running because the audience never stops buying tickets. The politicians deliver the same lines, recycle the same fantasies, and rely on the same old tricks, knowing full well that every few years a fresh crowd will show up hopeful, wide-eyed, and ready to believe. And the public keeps falling for it, not because they're foolish, but because hope is the only thing the system hands out for free. The truth is simple. The government doesn't fix problems. It manages expectations. It doesn't build trust, it sells optimism. And as long as people keep clinging to those shiny, empty promises, the joke will keep going, the lies will keep repeating, and the comedy show known as politics will never end.